There's been a lot of very temporary inflation from a set of quirks related to the reopening. For example, used auto car prices have absolutely soared, and other prices are getting back to where they were pre-pandemic. I don't think anyone thinks the recent rate of price increase is going to continue. The question is, how much does it slow down? Does it slow down, all the way back to the 2% increase every year we used to see? Or does it slow down less than that and we're left with something more like a 3% increase every year? I don't actually think 3% inflation would be terrible, but it depends. If policymakers tried to lower inflation from 3 to 2, that could be pretty painful. If wages don't keep up with prices, that would also be troubling. But if we want to operate the economy year in and year out at a higher inflation rate going forward, I don't see that as a problem personally. But I do think it's important to make policy based on the most realistic and accurate expectations for what's happening in the future. There's no danger of repeating the experience like the 1970s. The Fed learned that lesson. They'll never let inflation get to 10%, again. The 1960s is the model for what we're going through now. Inflation crept up from about 1.5% to about 5%. One of the troubling things in the 1960s was that wages didn't keep up with prices. And so people saw their purchasing power, their real wages, fall. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen now, but that is the scenario to be worried about. It's not a catastrophically terrible one by any stretch, but I don't think it's perfect either. There's two scenarios for the Fed. The most likely one is that our unemployment rate is quite low in 2022. Inflation is running above trend. And so the choice is very easy. They've achieved roughly their maximum employment mandate. They have to do the inflation one, and they raise rates. I should also note that when the Fed raises rates, it'll shift monetary policy from being very, very accommodative to just being very accommodative.
Right.
Any rates below about 2.5% still means they are pressing the accelerator and trying to move the economy forward, just not pressing it quite as hard. The bad scenario for the Fed would be the unemployment rate remains elevated and inflation is running at 3%, and then they'll have their dual mandates will be pulling them in different directions, and I'm not sure how they would resolve that. And then finally, inflation is low and unemployment is high. That's straightforward. They will want to, and they should keep the pedal full onto the metal. I think that's the least likely of those three scenarios.